Excuse me. All right, folks. It's time for another dramatic blog reading. This one's not from the backlog. I wrote this 1 hour ago. Well, 2 hours ago. It was a long piano lesson I just taught. So here it is. Chrystia Freeland is evil. I can prove it. I just stepped out to buy a gram of weed and ran into neighbors, 2 friends of mine, and I asked them if they were tired of Chrystia Freeland yet. And we got talking. I told them that I had just decided 2 days ago to run against her, and I felt like I hadn't gone outside much since then, ironically, since one major subject of many of these meditations leading to this decision was one you all have ruminated on: lockdowns. By the way, in I think it was 2020, the suicide deaths equaled the COVID deaths if you add May into it. Now, lockdowns don't prove that Chrystia is evil, but we, my neighbors and I, started with an obvious agreement that there should be legal limits on lockdowns. Circuit breaker lockdowns only should be allowed in human rights. And we should have regular referenda on the maximum duration of any legally imposed lockdown. Voluntarily, not going to force you to leave your house, but we're talking about the law here. There should be a maximum law that you could have. If the public, it should be argued, is too stupid, what Chrystia thinks, she's condescending as fuck, to do this decision right in the event of a truly deadly pathogen, however you quantify that, the reply is simple. The incentive to educate rather than control has always been life or death. You're only just seeing it now. Give people the power, and then you have to stop denying them the education. But no, that's not what proves that Chrystia is evil. It's the timing, as it is with so many things in politics. The timing not of lockdowns of people, but lockdowns of cash, lockdowns of money. Here's the proof my neighbors and I instantly agreed on. 1. If Freeland froze bank accounts on literally any day other than Valentine's Day, the argument can be made that it wasn't evil. But this argument can't be made if she chooses one day out of 365 to freeze a family's money on, in which case she is evil. And that was the word my neighbor chose. I agreed instantaneously, instinctively. Premise 2. Freeland froze bank accounts specifically on Valentine's Day. So it's not just an if-then. The antecedent is true. 3. Therefore, Chrystia Freeland is evil. QED, modus ponens, folks. It's really simple logic, folks. And they even gave in to the truckers' demands. What did they want? Oh, just bodily autonomy, like feminism has always fought for. Freeland is anti-feminist. It gets worse. In Australia, they are already freezing cash withdrawals in many situations for everyone, not just truckers. And Trump has been forced to start campaigning that he will prevent a central bank digital currency, CBDC. What's the big deal with this bag of words, central bank digital currency? Well, think back to Valentine's Day 2 years ago. Imagine you are the wife of a trucker buying food for her children, and the bank card doesn't work at the checkout lineup out of nowhere. This is Freeland's Canada. I was worried there was going to be a run of the banks at that time. I even wrote her then, like, what are you doing? Anyway, but cash was still available, and cryptocurrency too. Without these two means at our disposal, global tyranny is imminent, and I'm not fucking kidding. The cost of living crisis comes from wartime spending, not from CERB, but it does come from money printing, which is what a CBDC imposes. All assets can be fucked with. Money can be printed and your grocery bill goes up. In the past, nations have confiscated all the gold in a country for this sort of reason. And this is what your finance minister and my personal MP wants to do. She wants to control your purse strings from every angle. But if Bitcoin won the day, could we print money for wars? No. Try it. Just try it. This is how it happened, how it's been since Hiroshima. When America dropped the bomb, it effectively gained the power to change the rules of global banking and forced all countries onto fiat currency, enabling endless war via endless money printing. This is why Satoshi's name is Japanese. Regardless of Satoshi's true identity, I submit it is a response to Hiroshima, which made the USD the lingua franca, pushing BTC to compensate and decentralize the world's military powers, not just the banks. One's a knock-on effect. For, as Brand says so eloquently, wherever power concentrates, it forms a dickhead. Bitcoin is a peace coin. Sadly, Freeland's model is no better than Pierre Poilievre's economic model. I was just asking someone who was, quote-unquote, definitely not conservative, whose economic model they support, and the implicit answer was neither. But while they could put their finger on the money printing as the issue with Ms. Freeland's approach, they didn't verbalize what's wrong with Poilievre. Well, here we go. He may listen to Breedlove in his breeding chamber with his wife, but he doesn't have the kind of progressive vision for money outlined above. Moreover, he's in the grip of a pervasive conservative fallacy, the fallacy of 1 equals 1. What do I mean? Surely this is an analytic truth, or perhaps a synthetic truth, so how could it be a fallacy? Well, if you had to borrow $1, would you borrow it from your rich friend, if you could, or would you borrow it from your poor friend? Well, you know the answer, but why in economic terms does this make sense? The term, at least, is called the diminishing marginal utility of money. And conservatives never mention it, because their entire shell game is a distraction from taxing and eating the rich. They oppose the carbon tax, but also the income tax and regulations on corporate emitters that would really address climate change, instead of bleeding the poor and weakening the chances of a revolution being triggered in the cataclysm. As I mentioned in this week's articles, a revolution is inevitable, but a peaceful revolution is possible, which must therefore be accelerated. Accelerate peaceful revolution at all costs. So, since $1 in my pocket doesn't equal $1 in yours, slicing the pie more evenly does increase the effective size of the pie. Think of it this way. Everyone knows the first potato chip is best and that the last one in the bag is the worst. By the time you get to the end of the bag, the person you share the chip with is protecting you from harm. And one of the chips you give them will be as good as the first time was for you when you had your first chip. Well, the more you share potato chips, the more first chips there are. So the chips actually go up in value as you share them. Money is just like this, except the health effects of too much are more subtle. And in some cases more psychological. The conservative shtick is that they're good at math, but they're just thinking of arithmetic, not the philosophical foundations of probability, which they didn't study in school. Just look it up. Probability and Inductive Logic by Ian Hacking covers the diminishing marginal utility of money, and I submit to you that it provides a fatal knockdown of Pierre's economic model. Another fatal knockdown, there's two at least, is the 2019 proof that markets, quote unquote, are formally incompletable, which means that unpriced externalities, like unreasonably cheap pollution, will always exist. And it's the job of socialist market regulations to price in, to quote unquote, price in the most relevant information that cannot be expressed in the prices, because the prices already were full. It's like a floppy disk only contains so much information. A set of prices can only contain so much information. And there's a more robust statement of this in the 2019 proof. This is not about central planning. When I say socialist economics, central planning, which I oppose, even in the form of urban zoning. Central planning has been tested and it failed. But the Cold War did not test worker cooperatives. Looking at other articles for stuff like that. Anyway, libertarians like Poilievre and Breedlove have this fantasy where they're hypnotized by the epistemic virtues of the market when it's freer and worship it like a god, elevating it from Olympus to heaven, ascribing to it omniscience in an exaggerated humility which they do not extend to the humility that should lead them to see a diversity of truth. The truths the market speaks and what it misses, which we've proven mathematically now always exists. There's always something the market misses. So if you're math guys, conservatives, you have to read not just MMT, but the Incompletability of Markets, 2019. Chrystia, on the other hand, needs to get her head out of her ass and stop acting controlling. The news ban is unconscionable, and we know she doesn't support diversity of thought in the media, which brings me to our list of policy positions we sorely need against Ms. Freeland. Abolish censorship. End the news ban. Abolish intellectual property, deny the globalist agenda, legal limits on lockdowns, print houses, not guns. Cash is king. Your money, your choice. Your body, your choice. Write the NDP today and demand that they run me as the NDP candidate against Freeland. I'm running anyway. ndp.ca/contact